Okay, welcome everybody. Today we're just going to look at some arranging ideas for St. James Infirmary. It's nice to go back to some of these older tunes for stuff like this because there wasn't a lot of written material for the arranging lessons early on and the first for some of the first songs that we did here in the membership. So that's what we're going to do. I've already got, gosh, I did it again. I should have gone full screen for the opening thing, but I totally spaced. So sorry about that. Here is the arranging scheme. And yeah, I always forget too that daylight savings changes a week later in Europe. So I'm glad somebody smarter thought to mention it for people that that's relevant for. I am happy to be here. For those of you who were here a couple hours ago for the masterclass live stream, somehow this feels like a lot less pressure because everybody, I feel like it's the inside crowd. I know everybody, and you all know each other. I got to see some Fingerstyle 5 folks live last weekend on Sunday. There were some folks. Hopefully I can remember everybody who was there off the top of my head. Ravi came to so John Knowles and I did a workshop in Arvada, Colorado. I had gone up to play a couple shows, and so I got to see Jeff Ehrlichman at the show, and Corey, who is a new member, or about to be a new member. This is where I'm going to get in trouble. There were a couple other people there that night that I'm spacing. But then at the workshop on Sunday, Ravi Edwards, and Dave, Lightroom guy, and Bob Besson, I think I'm saying his last name right, and a couple others. Chuck Rhodes was there, and let me go around the room and see if I can remember who the fifth person was. Bob. Who else? Oh, I'm gonna hate myself for not remembering. Should have made notes for myself. Anyway, it'll come to me in the middle of the lesson. Anyway, it was nice to see some folks like actually in person and hear them play. So that was really fun, and it's always fun to hang out and get to knock heads with John Knowles, especially. He's one of my favorite guitar players, and always has smart things to say. So John and I have taught together for a long time. That's the first time we've done something outside of like an official workshop. So maybe we'll do it again sometime. It was great. Okay, I'm going to try to turn off the brain that's trying to remember who the fifth person was. They can write me a mean email later and remind me and tell me that I am totally uncool. Okay, great. So here's the 7-step arc, right? I'm not going to go over this in detail. We talk about this every month, and we've already talked about it for Zuzu Bingo this month. But basically, intro and vamp, we're going to look at one of those. We're going to look at how to use both the Zuzu Bingo vamp and a St. James Infirmary vamp on St. James Infirmary. We've already been over the tune. We've been over some of the soloing. So we'll look at a shout chorus today. And then we'll also look at, here's the abbreviated fundamental version of the arrangement, right? And an extended fundamental version. And here we'll look at some accompaniment stuff too. So if you want to sing the tune, I've got some stuff in here for a couple of different levels of accompaniment as well. So we're going to focus today mostly on vamps and accompaniment and shout chorus, just the materials you need. I'm moving quickly just because we have kind of, an hour to go over, kind of a bunch of arranging ideas. So let's start off with this one. This is a basic or fundamental vamp we can do on an A minor tune with an alternating thumb. I love this kind of sound. It's just taking an A minor chord, 4th string, 3rd string, 2nd string, and the thumb is alternating 5th string, 4th string, 6th string, 4th string, 5th string, 4th string, 6th string, 4th string. And every time you're on beats 2 and 4, every time the thumb is coming up to the 4th string here, you're going to grab 2nd and 3rd string with index in the middle. So that's the basic thing, just this kind of rocking. And you can relax the grip after the quarter note's over. So you don't hear, that's not really the feel. It's, think of it, it's like a horn section. Wah, wah, right? So you're gonna pick, and then you're not gonna lift your fingers off. You're just gonna relax the grip so that instead of pressing down, you're just touching the strings. I guess it would be this hand, right? For most people. You're gonna press in to play the chord, then you're gonna relax your grip. And that's gonna cut off the note. And then every other time we can have this little bass walk up, spelling out a little bit of the E chord, right? The root and the major third of E. So 2nd measure and repeat. And then when you're going to go into the melody, you're going to have to stop on the downbeat of measure 4. Here's measure 2. Measure 4. Or whatever the pickup phrase is. I guess in the fundamental version, we're starting on the root. So there's a fundamental vamp that we can use. And then here's the Zuzu Bingo vamp. This has a little more momentum, right? Because it's 8th notes. This is just a quarter note vamp. 2, 3, 4. This one where we're like doing kind of this boogie figure where we've got the index finger playing the off beats on the A root on the 3rd string every time. But it's got a nice, it sets up the shuffle feel. And then same thing in the end of beat, in the second half of measure 2. And I went over all of this in more detail during the Zuzu Bingo lesson. From the beginning of this month, the first arranging lesson of the month I went over, or maybe even back in January, we've gone over this vamp in detail. So I'm just going to kind of mention here this is a possibility. And then if you want to get into the melody, it's the exact same thing as the St. James one we did on the previous page. Just stop on the downbeat of 4 and leave room for the bass pickup. So measure 2. Measure 3, measure 4. Right? Although, here you probably would want to play instead of playing the Zuzu Bingo pickup. But basically, it's the same idea. Okay, so here's an embellished vamp. So this mostly takes the fundamental St. James vamp and changes up the chord voicings just a little bit. So instead of thinking A minor E, which is the bass, we're thinking A minor E7 with a B in the bass and a flat 9 over here. So you can also think of this as just a B diminished chord, but we're trying to get this bass line happening. We want to have this basically. So the chords, A minor, and then B diminished. Here's the root, the flat 5, the diminished 7th, and the flat 3rd. Or you could think of it as E7, but we've taken the root here and raised it to the flat 9. So this hand is not changing. And then we go to an A minor with a C in the bass, which is also a C6 chord. So we get this bass line going like this, and then we get this happening on top, and in between the voices are filled out. And then if we want to go into the melody, so this changes up a little bit in measures 3 and 4. So at the beginning we have A minor, B diminished, or E7 with flat 9 over B, A minor to E, and then here's A minor. Now we're going to go down to a D7 with F sharp in the bass. So we're going to keep all this stuff on top, but move this note, the middle finger here, is going to move down to an F sharp in the bass. And then an F. And then anticipate the E7 chord. So we have that vamp too. We got all kinds of vamps, right? And then here's the embellished Zuzu Bingo vamp. And then again, if you're going to go into the tune, you would have to vary it a little bit. Probably want to swap out this and play right from this downbeat. Right, so probably have to slow it down a little bit. So we got all kinds of amps, 4 different ones to choose from. Fundamental and embellished taken from the St. James version, and then fundamental and embellished taken from Zuzu Bingo, and we can swap them around, right? So that takes care of the vamp, and that means we could have one vamp that we used. You know, you could use, say, this one. That could be your intro and outro, and then you could go into the Zuzu Bingo vamp in the middle, or vice versa. You could open and close with, and then in the middle you could use the St. James stuff with the diminished chord, or even just the simplest one. You know, so vamps all over the place, and then we need a shout chorus. So I'll try to play this as close to the tab as I can. I play this shout chorus a lot, so rhythmically I've probably done it a handful of different ways. But here is one way to do it. So let me slow that down a little bit. It's based on this series of chords. There are 3 A minor 6 voicings here, and I will spell them out. Here is the 6th, flat 3rd, 5th, and root of A minor 6. Here's the root, 5th, 6th, and flat 3rd of A minor 6. And here is the minor 3rd, 6th, root, and 5th of A minor 6. And so you get, there's the root on top, here's the 3rd on top, and here's the 5th on top. So the top notes spell out an A minor chord, And then in between, we're going to connect them up with these two diminished shapes. And these are doing the exact same thing as this. This, if you lower the F note, you can see that it's just an E7 chord. Here's the third, the flat 7, the root, and the 5th. So this is basically, it's a diminished shape, but it's working as an E7 with a flat 9. And this one is doing the same thing. If you take the F and lower it a half step, there's a garden variety E7 chord. Here's the 5th, the root, the 3rd, and the flat 7. If we raise the root a half step, now we've got another E7 flat 9 chord. And so we're just going, we're rocking between 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. And so with a little bit of artistic license, here's A minor, and then that's really half stepping into the E7 chord, and we're not playing flat 9 here. And then there's F7, like we were playing F down here. And then this is a variation on the E chord. We're taking the 3rd and suspending it. So it's like a E7 flat 9 with a sus4. Now if you put a B in the bass, it would be a B minor 7 flat 5. But since we're just going to sort of play it over the E chord, we're going to think of it as a sus chord. And then next line. Why does it say that? A minor 6th. Oh. That's really a, it looks like I can see that's like a B minor 7 flat 5. But with a D in the bass, it's really functioning as a D minor 6. I should have tweaked that. And then E, and then half stepping into E9, and then half stepping into A minor 6, and half stepping down onto E again. So So, shout chorus, nice, loud, riffy chord kind of statement. So, we've got that. And then here, lyrics. There's a lot of versions of this song. I went to look them up and I was like, wait, I know the lyrics to this song. I've sung this song a million times. I think that these are a composite of whatever... This is a composite of whatever Dave Van Ronk did on his first Folkways record, and then maybe a couple of variations on the lyrics that I must have accumulated somewhere else along the way. So, if you want to sing, there's some lyrics, and if you want to do the accompaniment, here are 3 different degrees of accompaniment that you can do. The first is based on the same rhythm as the vamp. Yes, I see some questions. I'll get to those in a moment. Yeah, we're basically just going to be playing the basic chords, right? A minor and E and F and D with F sharp in the bass, and following the same rhythmic moves as the opening vamp. And the idea is to have something that's kind of rhythmically consistent that you could actually sing the melody over, or that someone could play the melody over, and it wouldn't be too distracting. I went down to the St. James Infirmary to see my baby there. She was laid out on the marble. It was so sweet, so cold, so right. And you can just kind of do that. It's almost like just like a bluegrass boom chuck, or some other kind of groove where you're just doing something consistent, and it works. And you might even just use your thumb, like kind of a Merle Travis thing, to like just play a bit of the chord. Right, it doesn't take much. It's just getting that sort of bass and the backbeat in there. Now you could start to syncopate things as well. So that's taking the first measure straight. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So it's basically syncopating the move from the 1 to the 5 chord. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then we can repeat that in measures 3 and 4. Repeat that syncopation, but not those chords. So the same idea, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And then same thing. And then, so this measure and this measure work out exactly the same. These two are variations where you're doing it just on the E chord, or you're doing it going from A minor to D7. But it's that same thing I was just talking about in the earlier live stream for the masterclass, which is this is one kind of syncopation applied to the whole tune. So it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And if you can do that, it doesn't matter what chords you're playing. Right, and you could play that on anything. And again, it's something you can just kind of get your hands grooving on. Or if I play it with the measure 4 being accurate. So the vocals would be like, on my left stood Big Joe McKennedy. His eyes were bloodshot red. As he turned to face the crowd there, these are the very words that he said. You notice the syncopation's mostly coming in the gaps between the vocals. Right? Let her go, God bless her. Wherever she may be, she can travel the wide world over. Never find another man like me. Right? So the tricky bits are happening in between the vocals, so it provides a kind of commentary, and then things are more straightforward underneath the vocal, which helps you concentrate and also lets the vocal kind of stand out. So third option, same right hand, but chord substitutions over here, right? So again, I haven't changed the rhythm at all between the last time and this time, but over here stuff is going on. So here's A minor, Here's E7 with flat 9 and B in the bass. Here's A minor over 6, A minor over C. And then A to F, B minor 7 to E, and then A minor, E with G sharp in the bass, C with G in the bass, D7 over F sharp, F, E, A minor, E7. So that gives us a whole other degree of things, but the chord substitutions don't mess with the vocal either. When I die, won't you, when I die, won't you bury me in my high top Stetson hat? Put a $20 gold piece on my watch chain. My friends will know I died standing pat. Again, the rhythmic variation is happening in the cracks between the vocal statements. So you could pick one of these and just use it whenever you're doing vocals. You could have a slow build throughout the tune, but that is how you could work with that. I had a request for playing the shout chorus full screen, which I'm happy to do. Looks like this. So slow it down, and then I'll go over the voicings one by one. So it's A minor 6, and then F9 with B in the bass, F9 with C in the bass, E9 with B in the bass, and then back to A minor 6, and then that's F9 again, and then E7 sus. There's the 4, the flat 7, flat 9, and 5. Then it resolves to E7, flat 9. Here's the 3rd, the flat 7, the flat 9, and the 5th. And then here we're going to go A minor 6 to A minor 6. So here's 6, flat 3, 5, and root. Here's root 5, 6, flat 3rd. And then here's the diminished shapes functioning as E7s. Back to A minor 6, and another A minor 6 up here. Flat 3rd, 6, root, and 5th. D minor 6. Here's 6, flat 3, 5th, and root. And then E major. Here's the 5th, root, 3, and root. Flat 9, F9 to E9. 3rd, flat 7, 9, and 5th. And then half stepping into A minor 6. And then half stepping down to the E7 again. So So that's the shout chorus. And so if we were going to assemble all of this stuff, let's see what that would look like. So if I did one of these, here I'll start off with The Zuzu Bingo vamp, I'll use the St. James vamp in the middle. I'll do a solo, I'll do a shout chorus, I'll do the whole 7 steps. I'll try to call out everything as I go. So here's my vamp. Second time through the melody. Chord substitutions. Here's the St. James vamp. And then the part where it goes down. Chorus. So that's one way you could do it. And of course, if you were going to do vocals, it would be a little bit different. But I see some more questions, which I will now attempt to answer. Okay, William, let me know if you found the PDF. It should be on the same page. I know if you click through to YouTube, you're not on the page anymore. But the third live stream page for the membership should be where to find the correct PDF. In fact, I'm going to do a little on screen here. Let's see if I can make this happen. Possibly. Hang on. Show everybody where to make sure you can find the stuff. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, great. So if you're on the home page, you would go down to Winter 25, St. James Infirmary. Click on that sucker. And then here's what we did in January, playing the tune. In February, we looked at improvisation. Now, right now, very meta, we're looking at arranging. You click on this guy. And then download files should be right here. When you click on it, Winter 2025, St. James Infirmary arranging the tune. There it is. And then if you go through, you should see the shout chorus right about, whoops, there. So that's how to find it. Man, that actually worked. Amazing. Okay, let's see. Okay, we did the shout chorus full screen. We found where the shout chorus is. Any other questions? Another request, if possible. Would it make sense to use a low register such as Freddie Green chords for accompaniment? Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, this is really just kind of like an open position, like more blues guitar version of the same idea. But yeah, you could do... Let's see. Now you have a couple options. You could kind of use thumb, index, middle to kind of approximate a strummed. I mean, you could use your thumb and just, you could do that kind of thing. You could grab like that. You could alternate the thumb and do thumb, thumb, and when you come up, you could grab index on the third string. Thumb could brush fourth and third string. You could do that for like the, you know, the F major. A minor, here's E, here's C6-ish with G in the bass, here's D with F sharp in the bass, here's F7, here's E, right? So actually that would be nice too. That's like C major 7 with G in the bass, so could go, let's see. You can go all West Montgomery, right? When you get to the F7, you could go C minor 7 to F7, B minor 7 to E7 to A minor 7. So a little silly, but it could be done, right? And you've got this open E on top. Right, so that's kind of nice. Here's A minor 6 to the high string, E7 to the high string, C6 to the high string. And if you want to get really exotic, sort of do some of those moves that are like a little bit of what I used in Mule Shoe Getaway. So you could play. I mean, the B doesn't sound so great on this, but you could use the high string there. So you could have. That's where you start to get like a hybrid of the Freddie Green thing and the fingerstyle thing, right? So it was down. That's kind of busy, right? To sing over that, it was down by old Joe's barroom on the corner by. You know, there's too much going on. But to play by itself as a vamp, that would be really nice, actually. And it's a little bit like Zuzu, right? You could do open A once you've sort of figured out the voicings, right? That could be your vamp, right? That's not so great because you really need this in the bass. But just to go between these two. And now you're trying to get on top. Many ideas. That's where the overlap between this one and Zuzu Bingo start to happen, right? Because that's based on that riff, and this is based on, again, syncopation. 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 and. So that's the idea. Any other questions or any other things that need to be re-demonstrated? We're actually going to look at the conclusion to Zuzu Bingo at 2:30 Central Daylight. So that's in 45 minutes. So we'll be going over all of that. And then that'll be it for March. And then we're going to be coming up on looking at Statesboro Blues in April, which I'm pretty excited about. I think it's going to be fun. Jim, yeah, one could go right from St. James Infirmary into Zuzu Bingo. Yeah, you totally could, because you could finish and... seamless segue. Should be very cool. So, okay. I'm not seeing any additional questions. I think we got everything else squared away. Yeah. There is a conversation happening over in the forum about using the Redux tunes, like, being able to work on 2 tunes at once, like St. James and Zuzu Bingo, or not. So if you've got thoughts about that, for or against, or just want to contribute your own experience to that, go over to the forum and chime in. I'm very interested in this because it seemed like a no-brainer to me to go back and look at another song with a similar groove at the same time. And I think most people have really enjoyed that. I know some people have just completely ignored doing St. James because they're like, I got my hands full with Zuzu Bingo. And I also realized, like, the whole idea of doing like this 3-month thing was to take some of the pressure off, and then putting another tune back into the mix may have made some people feel like there was more pressure to work on 2 things at once, which is the last thing I want. I just wanted to provide some options. So this is good for me to know how people feel about it going into the next quarter, as far as how much emphasis to put or not put on revisiting an additional tune at the same time. So let me know what you think about that, either right now or in the forum. Probably in the forum, because this live stream is about to end if there are no further questions. So we'll meet back here in 40 minutes and we'll look at the tail end of Zuzu Bingo. No pun intended. We'll be done with that. The first live stream in April, I need to put the calendar up. It's a good question, Blake. Let me look and just double check and see when we're starting. I think we are, yes, no streams next week. And then we'll start April 3rd. So, that's when we'll start the next quarter. So, and there's one more Groove Masterclass happening on Saturday. And someone asked, and of course, those will be archived in the membership at the end of March. So you'll be able to keep watching those if you want. And so will anybody else who joins. So, tell anybody you think might want to that we got a new quarter starting. And we'll get started on that soon. All right. Great. Well, this was fun. I like getting to go back and look at these tunes again. And I know we're not looking at them in the same kind of detail, but at least this way we have some written arranging stuff and some written soloing stuff to work on. So let me know when you have a chance how you felt about working on the improvisation last month as a transcription and how this arranging month worked for you.